Hello, I am Amfortas, and today I want to talk to you, women and men both, about the wages of spin. It is about money and about lies. My talk, written by Paul Elam, a writer and men's advocate from Houston in Texas, is about pay equity. It is one of the last battles in a gender war that started with women's suffrage in the 19th century and raged throughout the 1960s and 70s. Unfortunately, it is a battle that continues for naught. Politicians with no truths to say trot out this canard every year. But ladies, you are being deliberately deceived and made angry for your vote. All the fighting is predicated on the notion that women earn less than men do for the same work. Depending on who you listen to, the actual numbers vary. Back in the 70s, feminists wore 59-cent pins to protest the fact that a woman earned only 59 cents for every dollar earned by a man. They also protested the glass ceiling, claiming that women were shut off from the highest rungs on the professional ladder. The stats are almost right. Men do earn more than women. But that surface reality is clarified when you take a deeper look into the pond. The numbers are based on a raw average of men's and women's income. Thus, a female receptionist who works 40 hours per week has her income averaged in with the male CEO of the company she works for, who works 70 hours per week. Different? Yes. Sex-based discrimination? Hardly. But that is the implication people are given when the faulty methodology that the wage studies use to reach faulty conclusions is intentionally hidden. That is what happened in the 60s and 70s and what is happening now. In April of 2007, the feminists American Association of University Women released a study with the following conclusion in the executive summary. 1 year out of college, it said, women working full-time earn only 80% as much as their male colleagues earn. 10 years after graduation, women fall further behind, earning only 69% as much as men earn. So according to the AAUW, women have gone from a 59-cent wage gap to a 69-cent wage gap. But there remains one fundamental problem. The methodology hasn't changed. Please note the very next line from the executive summary. Controlling for hours, it says, occupation, parenthood, and other factors normally associated with pay, college-educated women still earn less than their male peers. Note that they did not say, after controlling for hours and other factors, that women still earned only 69 cents, but they earned less. In other words, they presented their conclusions so that unsubstantiated statistics would be remembered and passed on to others. It was a clear act of deception, a distortion, fabricated and marketed as science in order to pursue an invalid political agenda. It is deception and a set of bogus figures that are repeated in legislatures in most Anglophile countries, by Harriet Harman in the UK and Julia Gillard in Australia, for instance, and Nancy Pelosi in the USA. These are powerful political feminist women who have never experienced a glass ceiling in their lives and are paid far more than 99% of men. They are on the highest rungs they claim women are prevented from reaching. Lies seem to fall easily from their lips into the other women's ears for deceptively garnered votes. They have dirty hands, but not from hard work. Naturally, the question arises, if feminist studies are distorting the facts, then what is the truth? June O'Neill, former director of the United States Congressional Budget Office, conducted a study of the wage gap allegations. She found, after controlling for experience, education, and number of years on the job, that women earned 98% of what their male counterparts earned. That is a wage gap of 98 cents to the dollar, or what most statisticians would say is statistically insignificant, or within a suitable margin of error to call equal. This is what the feminist university women should have concluded, and would have if they were in the slightest interest in disseminating accurate information. But the truth about the wage gap myth undermines the feminist agenda to paint women as victims to the male-dominated workplace. Understand that the AAUW and other similar feminist organizations use these results to raise funds and put themselves in the media limelight. If there is no problem, and there isn't, then there is no need to give them money or even to pay attention to them. While feminists maintain that feminism is about empowering women, we all too often see that their agenda depends on making victims of them, even if those victims need to be fabricated. We can and should dig into this some more. It is important to understand much more about why studies indicate a wage gap before the statistics are clarified by considering the variables that affect the outcome. Dr. Warren Farrell, PhD, the only man ever elected to the National Organization for Women's National Board of Directors 3 times, was one of the early feminists incensed at the alleged pay gap. Dr. Farrell dedicated a great deal of his life to challenging the culture to address this injustice. Then one fateful day he asked himself questions that would change the course of his life and eventually convince him to leave that organization, reportedly to the relief of his feminist peers. He thought, wait a minute, if women actually earn only 59 cents for every dollar earned by a man for the same work, why wouldn't companies only hire women? Wouldn't they be able to produce products much cheaper than companies that employ men and put the competition out of business? He spent the next several years in painstaking research of the subject and came to the conclusion that has been verified as many times as it has been ignored. Women make less money because of their choices, not because of discrimination. When given the choice between more money or a better quality of life, women are much more likely than men to choose quality of life. Women work fewer hours per week than men on average, take more time off, and frequently choose to put family and personal life ahead of their jobs. This speaks to women's intelligence and empathy and nurture, much more than it does to their alleged status as victims. Men not only work longer and harder, they are much more likely to choose work that puts them in physical danger, exposes them to the elements, shortens their lifespan, and increases the level of job-related stress. These jobs, as a rule, pay better. It is the increased wages of risk and hardship. And the fact that more men than women choose to do these jobs is not a matter of discrimination, except to the extent that we still socialize men much more than women to put themselves on a chopping block for a paycheck. And this illustrates the concept of Farrell's seldom mentioned when discussing matters of pay, inequity and glass ceilings, the glass cellar. At the very bottom of the employment ladder are the death jobs: police work, firefighting, construction, truck driving, commercial fishing, manual labour and other jobs that form the backbone of our civilization. They are also the most dangerous and life-diminishing professions imaginable. All of them are as male-dominated as the halls of power. And they point to something that many may not want to hear. Pay equity for women is found not in boardrooms and corner offices, but behind the wheels of a semi, driving 40 tons of steel through icy weather in winter. Inclusion and parity is in the blistering hands that hold shovels and hammers in our minds, in the oceans and seas, labouring like a dog in unthinkably cold and 50-foot swells to bring the fish home to the table, in facing down sociopaths with knives in the darkened back alleys of our dense and decaying cities. These realities call upon us to examine a truth that many don't want to utter in today's politically correct culture, but is a truth nonetheless. If you want to get paid like a man, you have to work like one. Sometimes real justice is a real surprise, and equality a simple step up to reality. Thank you for listening to The Truth and Reason. This is Amfortas, and I thank my colleague Paul for his fine words. This podcast and video have been made in collaboration with Christian J for One for All. I dedicate it to my estranged but beloved daughter and to my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. Ask, who does the Grail serve?